Welcome to the Undebt Revenue Podcast. In today's episode, we're speaking with multi-location gym owner Nick Murrieta. He recently just passed $70,000 in monthly revenue at his one location. I think he averages around $60,000. And so we're going to break down exactly what he's doing in order to maintain that kind of revenue. And also, he is maintaining a 70 to 80% closing rate on all new people who are walking in his doors. That means for his ads running, anybody who books an appointment, shows up for that appointment, he is closing 70 to 80% onto memberships immediately in that first visit, which is absolutely insane. And so we're going to walk through that sales process and how he's able to train up his team in order to replicate that. Nick, thank you for coming on today. This is going to be an awesome discussion. Every time we get on our calls every single month, we discuss a bunch of stuff. We have all these strategy sessions that we go through, and I'm like, we needed to get on this call. It's been definitely due. Yeah, and so everybody knows. Explain a little bit about the style that your studio is.
So I would describe it, or what I describe to potential members, is we are a strength and conditioning facility. Our facility emphasizes strength training a lot more than your traditional, I would say, boot camp style circuit training based facility. So we emphasize really solid strength classes 3 days a week. And then we have conditioning cardio core classes a couple days a week, and then a mixture. So we basically emphasize a strength and conditioning facility, and then we do coaching as well. So kind of like best of both worlds. You're going to get the strength training and conditioning component in the group setting, and then you can have your own private coach, and they can help you out one-on-one in nutrition, form, stuff like that.
Awesome. So I know at Tempe, at least last we discussed, you guys have been averaging over like 60,000 a month in revenue for quite a while now. I know you broke 70K a few months back with your PIF plays. So what I wanted to ask you is what allowed you to get to that level? Because I know a lot of studios get to like that 25, 50,000 and they kind of get to a plateau and they're stuck there, and it's very difficult for them to get past that. And so what I wanted to figure out from you is just how you were able to do that and what you could give credit to in order to get to that kind of level that you're at now.
Yeah. So I was admittedly stuck there for quite a while. So really understanding, I've always been interested in marketing and ads and all that stuff. And we have many discussions about this, how many gyms kind of get stuck at like the 150, 75 to 200 member mark. And really without adding on any paid advertising, you're kind of stuck there and you can't really scale. I'm sure there are gyms that do it based off of referral and other systems, but it is very difficult. So the biggest thing we learned is ads. Now I ran ads and I've worked with other agencies too with ads for probably 3 years prior to us working together, and through a number of different things, found out what I did and didn't like. So it was a mixture of all that. So I would say, number one, you guys have obviously been a big help. So the ad system and doing paid advertising. And then the biggest second lever would be positioning a really unique offer, and an offer when people come into the door that is somewhat irresistible and very tempting. And obviously it's got to have follow through.
Yep.
And so what we've really been, I would say, better at, and a lot better at since when I started, was being able to get money in the ad system, and then also having offer and systems to bring it back and more in that initial month.
Yeah, you guys have your sales process is quite interesting. And so walk us through that, because I know obviously to get to that level, yes, of course, ads help because that, is going to fuel your organic traffic, your paid traffic, basically everything, right? But when you get people in the door, this is something you guys do different. And anytime I speak to clients that are struggling to convert, I always think back to you guys, because run me through the numbers first, because like you guys have, is it like close to 80? Like what's your closing percentage when you walk a new person in the door to get them onto a membership?
Yeah, so our closing percentage is, I would say fairly good. Of course, you want it to be better. But our rough average when we get in new members is about 70%. So that is, or I should say, that is our marker. Now, some of my staff and my GM who's been here for a while, we will probably get to 75, 80%. And then people that are a little bit newer, they would maybe get to 60, and then we get them up to 70. But in a whole, 70% is about our close rate.
Yeah. So walk us. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say that is also, because I know there's a lot of different offers, and I just want to add that is on a full paid membership from this jump. That is not close rate to an offer of a free trial or like a half price trial. That is a legit full membership, 6 months or month to month.
Yeah. And that's what I tell people. I'm like, when a new person walks in your door, like roughly, we'll just use 70 as an even whole number. 70% of those people are signing up to a membership during their first visit. And for the most part, like most of the clients that we work for, their closing rates are closer to 30%, and they're putting people onto a trial to start. You're getting 70% plus onto an actual membership to start. And so that's helping you with paying off all of your ads. It's getting you upfront capital right away, and it's moving people directly into a membership. And so walk us through exactly how you do that, because I know it's a unique approach this way. So the full system from like when somebody walks in the door. So we've done all the ads. We've now got them into the studio. How do you approach that conversation? How do you walk them through? What's that process look like?
Yeah. So I guess I'll kind of start going back into that our gym, we brand ourselves, and something that I think is a little bit unique. Now, other gyms have this in a way, but we brand ourselves as a group training and coaching facility. So those are two distinct departments of our gym. And so we have obviously people come there for membership, and then we have coaching options where they can work with a coach privately outside of that, and they can scale up. And it also gives us the leverage to put people in way better programs from the jump, to where even some of those people, I would say, like right now we're probably getting like 15 to 20% of those people to sign up, and then also doing another paid coaching program on top of that. So it can basically, our ALV, or I guess that's more in like online stuff, but our average order value can increase once we get a new client in there. So I would say it's with those distinct departments, our offer, and then what we go on when they come in is we have a membership that is everybody can do, and that everybody will get into the membership first. And then we have a unique way that we reach people, and we set them up with a coach, and we will basically have a really cool coaching offer that's going to help them with nutrition, coaching, and accountability. And we include that as part of our membership. And that is how we're able to close them on a high value with new members coming in.
Gotcha. So if I were to walk into your studio, what's kind of that process? Like, are you doing a gym tour? What's that look like from the standpoint of a new customer who comes in? Like, do you have like a script in which your team is following where, there's body language stuff, like you go through certain repetitive things every single time somebody goes in? Walk us through that.
Yeah. So essentially our setup and our play when people come in is that ultimately we want to take a person from coming in, never visiting us before, to get very, very comfortable with the opening up for a membership at the end. So getting from point A to B, or A to Z, is following a essential tour and a presentation is essentially what we do. But the big thing for us is we started off with a tour because, and there's a distinct way that we do our tour too. But they come in, they basically fill out a form. We get their PAR-Q, or basically their overview of their goals. Really, really important to have a intro form where you're not only understanding their goals, but past experiences, roadblocks, any injuries, stuff like that. But you want to think of that form as all of your potential closing tools that you're going to use that you'd want to know about this person, and then maybe things that you're getting where you're going to dive into a little bit more. Because essentially, good sales, what I always preach to my staff, good sales is all it is it's good communication, or effective communication. So
Absolutely.
if you have very effective and poignant communication, that's all that sales is. And at the end of the day, we want them to come to the decision of yes, not us forcing the yes upon them. And so that is even key. And I'll admit, like way when I first started selling, like when I was 19,
Yeah.
it was very immature. And so, not saying the tactics were shady, but just like you learn how to sell and communicate a lot better. So it's a very wholesome, wholesome or like mutual beneficial experience. So getting back to the process, they can fill out a form, and then we're basically taking them through a tour of our gym, what it looks like when they come in. We want them to envision themselves into the gym and what the classes are going to be like, because sometimes we may not have a class going on. So we kind of go over like, here's how the gym works. Here's what's going to happen on your first visit. Here's what you're going to do. Coach is going to be here to do X, Y, and Z for you. Get them kind of super excited. And we kind of take them through a brief tour of our gym and tools that we use, and maybe some of the unique tools that they'll be like handling. And then from there, we basically take them into a overview of our membership presentation and coaching presentation. And so from there, take them over that, and we have like a nice little iPad setup that we kind of review with them, and we're talking with them along the way, and then getting them to give an offer that is getting into a membership and or coaching from that day.
So what do you think other gyms are doing that's like, because most gyms, like their closing percentage is 30%. So is there any, like, do you think there's anything that you guys are doing that's especially unique when it comes to your sales process? Because I know in some of our discussions, something you mentioned to me about your sales process was you handle the objections almost during that first kind of intro while you're going through the gym. And so you're basically pulling out this, the potential issues that you can see coming up with certain questions that you're asking them. Is that like, do you have that documented in terms of like what questions to ask to find those objections out?
Yes. So this is huge. And essentially in our tour, we build in what I would call proactive obstacle overcomes. So essentially, we know what usual objections may be for members coming in. So it's like, if I just took a person in the door and I'm like, hey, all right, cool. Here's our gym. Here's what our memberships are. We want you to start 3 days a week. And it was like super quick. And then they're like, yes. You'll get like 15% yes. 15% are going to say no, no matter what. And that middle percentage of people, those are the people and why you need to learn sales. And so those people are going to have objections. And so we know what the most common objections or obstacles are before they come in the door from us as members. So we build that into the tour and the pricing presentation that we talk to them about, why we're asking them. So for instance, I'll kind of give you an example is like, we've had probably like 2 years ago, I started this one where we know people come in, we're like, cool, we recommend 3 days a week to get started with. You can do more than that, yada, yada, yada. And then they're like, oh, I can't come in. Like, I can't even make that. I'm too busy, right? The too busy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Like, of course you can come in today, but like, oh, I don't know. My schedule looks kind of weird. So What we do is we take them in the tour. There is a specific part that everybody goes through, and they go over like, cool, here's our schedule. We have our schedule up on a TV, and we're like, cool, so here's our classes, yada yada yada. And then I'm talking to them like, cool, this is what this does. And I'm like, just out of curiosity, like, do you think you could make like, I don't know, there's like 40 classes there. Do you think you could make like 3 of them per week? And they're like, yeah, definitely. Like, okay, cool. And I'm like, what about 20? And I joke with them, haha. And then they say, obviously no, but right then and there, I got them to commit to 3 times a week. So they have already stated, and they've already said that they can come in 3 times a week, which makes it, when you get to the 3 times a week, 4 times a week recommendation, they can no longer say, oh, my schedule, oh, I don't know if I can come in. So you've already proactively overcome that, kind of without them even knowing, but you're basically just getting them to set up to all of that stuff.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, because I think that's something people forget, is that, you know, these objections are going to come up whether you like it or not. And so in order for you to make sure that you can overcome those, getting, you know, their confirmation that they can come to your class times, you know, before you sit down and start offering them the memberships, before they can even bring up the fact that they have these schedule problems, is massive. So what does it look like? Because I know you mentioned that you and, you know, some of your top performing salespeople are, you know, they can get up into the 75%, upwards to 80. You obviously have the most experience since you've been doing it since you're 19. So what's it look like to train somebody to get them to that level? Like, I know you said some, you know, probably won't get all the way up to where you're at. And so what's the key for finding those people to get them up to that? Because obviously you as the owner, you don't want to have to be doing these sales appointments all the time. You want to find those people that can do what you're trying to do. And so what's that process look like for finding and training up, you know, your staff to become, you know, these high converting closers?
Yeah. So, and I was just, as you were talking about that, I just want to touch on something real quick, and it's just public service announcement for anybody that gets in the gym business. And there's a lot of people, and I don't know if you have clients that people get in because they're super passionate about fitness. And this is a very,
Most
very,
do.
you know, yes. And so maybe they have never done sales before. Well, I'm going to tell you, you absolutely like need to learn sales. All it is, it's not dirty. It's literally effective communication. And so good sales is like a dance. And so once you are taking this person through the right journey, and I will argue that if you sell a person better on the front end, they will be a way more successful client on the back end, and they will root for you. And if you don't have a sales process, you are leaving not only memberships off the table, but you are leaving client success. Because if you do it right, they will be way more motivated and way more excited about doing that. And if you have an excited member, then you're going to have an excited, consistent member that is going to be way likelier to get results. And so just, if there's anybody that is not understanding the dynamics of sales and good, effective salesmanship, you need to, and it's absolutely crucial.
Yeah, Alex Ramosi says this. He's like, oh, I got in the gym business because I loved fitness. And he realized that it's more about marketing and sales than anything else. And so you need to have those skills.
Yes. As, your business is not what you think it is sometimes. So people get in this business and they realize just marketing and sales, and fitness is all about that, because guess what? We have people that are on this vicious cycle that don't, every year they don't stick with the habit. And it's a hard thing to stick to. We get it. This is also why we have about job security in the future. You just got to be really, really good at what you do. And if you do, there is job security for the next 10 plus years. Easy.
Oh yeah. So walk us through how you would train somebody to be, you know, that high effective closer on your team.
Yeah. So basically we have 2 distinct departments. Essentially we have trainers, and then we have our admin sales staff. And then some of our trainer 2 sales as well. I've gone through a lot of iterations of this. So just as a recommendation, I would recommend getting your trainers, if you have admins, that can work. And if you have a really, really passionate admin, that's really good. Awesome. But I would also recommend getting your trainers to know how to sell, because those are the ones I would prefer to train, because one, they have the authority. So once they come in there, they have the authority to, like, once a client comes in, they're like, oh, this is the trainer, or this is the trainer we're working with. Right. So they have way more of a leverage and higher authority. So I would highly recommend you to, unless you can hire a really good salesman, which would be also great. We've used, like, to tell you, I've had, and to a testament to what we've been able to do, like, multiple times, I've had like 19-year-old college girls selling our memberships, and they've done really, really well. Now, some of them, though, they're not all as easy to get to turn into that. But to give you an idea, like, the best girls that I've had that were admins, I've gotten, like, this girl, Lauren, that I had back in the day, didn't do fitness at all. Like, literally not a fitness person. Like, you walk in there, nothing. She like worked. She has like a bio major and all sort of stuff. She was one of our best salespeople because she loved the gym so much, and then she would just listen and take in everything. And there's just this, like, very, very petite, skinny woman that just didn't work out. Anyway, so when we train our staff on sales, and we train admin staff and trainers now, we basically take them through sales training. So right now, I meet my staff every single week on Mondays, we have sales training meetings. So I open up the week like that, and that evolved into a time. We didn't do that at first. But when I'm training my sales staff, we basically have a bullet point system, and it says like, cool, here's the bullet points you want to hit with this. Here's the bullet point you want to hit with this. And essentially we break up our tour and sales presentation into 3 parts. So it's the intro whenever they come in, intro and warm welcome. There's that part. Then there's the tour part. And again, this is important because the whole like pointing out of the schedule. And then we have the presentation part. So learning those 3 sections is essentially what we have broken down. And so it's important to simplify it, but then also it's important to work with your staff on, what specific things they're going to be, doing and overcoming those objections and stuff like that.
Do you think there's any like character traits of your top performers? You mentioned that, that 19-year-old that came in that just absolutely crushed it. Have you had the opposite where somebody comes in, you think they're going to be good and they just kind of flop? Like, is there anything that you can see in terms of like a pattern of different character traits of the high performers that you look for now when you're going after like sales representatives?
Yes. Sometimes you can't really tell. And so they get into it and then they start kind of like showing you with like, little things here and there. But if I were to say one unique characteristic is a person that truly, one, really appreciates, respects, and likes the gym service and what we do and really believes in it. And I've hired people before where it's like I hire them and then I'm like, cool, here's what we do. And if they're not like coming to classes or they're not interested in like doing these little things that you really know that the person cares about the business in itself, that is huge. Because if a person does not care about your business, then it's not going to be natural. So they're going to be doing it, but it's going to be too fake and it just comes off. You can tell. Like we humans are very, very good at sniffing out bullshit. Mm-hmm. Right. And so I would say one very important thing was just having somebody that really loves and respects and appreciates what we do. Because you're going to deal with people that, most people are great, but with, when you're getting in a bunch of members, you're going to deal with people that are difficult or that are, tougher to overcome. So you really got to believe in the service to keep on going with that.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think authenticity and like if somebody's a raving fan of your facility, it's like they're going to be your best salespeople, and that's a trend that I see. I spoke with a gentleman who owns 4 metabolics, and something he said when he's looking for staff that are going to be their best performer salespeople, it's usually somebody who loves metabolic, like the franchise in itself, so much so that when they get in those sales situations, they're so passionate, they're so enthusiastic about the product in itself that you can just tell by talking to them that they're just enthusiastic about it in general, which is a good point there. So in terms of sales, obviously that's a part of your business structure that I think you guys absolutely crush. Like the best clients that we work with usually have a system in place where people come in the door and they can close those people. What I wanted to ask you about was you recently opened your new location. Now that launched, when was it exactly when the studio opened?
January.
January. Yeah. So I wanted to dive into that because obviously anybody who's looking to grow to multiple locations, there's a lot of owners in there that, once they get kind of sustained with their first studio, they look to open their next one. And so I wanted to touch on a few things there because I know when we launched that location, there was mistakes that we definitely made. There's things we could have done different, but I'm curious from your perspective, when you open the second studio, what types of things came up that you weren't expecting? Like when you first open it, you're like, okay, like there's all this potential, right? And then you open it and you're like, oh crap, I didn't realize this and that. And so I wanted you to walk through basically like what it was like opening the new studio, what things might've popped up that you weren't expecting, that kind of caught you off guard.
Good question. A ton. Sure. I would say, look, I go into every situation being like, cool, we're going to do this. I'm going to expect to have a lot of things come up that are going to come out of left field. And so that's all part of the process. But I would say, offhand, the biggest things were like establishing yourself in a market. So we happened to get in a market that was, for good and bad, saturated, and or a lot of businesses have been in and out our new area, which we're at, which is good and bad. Good side of it is they are used to people like you. And so there's people that are like very experienced in there with the group training setting. There's people that like definitely want to look for a new thing. On the other side of it is that the offers or the way you approach things, they've seen it a ton of times. So, for us, I think the thing that helps is having a really unique, different offer where we're not just playing just group training facility. But I would say once understanding the market and getting in there, knowing what kind of offer you can place that's going to differentiate yourselves from other people around the area, if it's saturated or if it's in a populated area. And so I would say that, and then I would put more boots on the ground. So we did a lot of paid advertising, and then for us, getting our account where we got kind of integrated and understanding the market within there, and then what parts not to market to, all that kind of stuff, which we've had some hiccups, but you guys have done a phenomenal job as far as like pretty much like making all these tweaks to now. I mean, our lead cost right now is great for over there. And so, not knowing that we were going to run into all those things at first. So it's like in our Tempe facility, we were getting great lead costs. It's like, boom, our offer's awesome. And then we get into this place, and then it's like, it's still
What the
getting
heck?
members in, but it's not
Yeah.
quite as fast as what I would assumed. And then so tweaking all those things. So I would say a combination of just getting ready to make adjustments quickly to know your market. And if you could work with somebody like you guys or whoever that can do that, and then get more boots on the ground in terms of the guerrilla marketing as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of owners forget that. Everybody thinks that you can just replicate what you're doing at another location, but the problem is the demographics, everything kind of changes. And like you said, it's like we had to figure out that new market. We had to start adding restrictions in certain areas that we knew people weren't going to be a good fit for the studio and make those adjustments kind of moving forward. And so, yeah, I think that's a good point there. So with the new location, I guess what's the trick for getting it filled with employees when you first launched that? I know you obviously had Gwyneth, who was at after at Tempe, and she kind of handled a lot of stuff over at the new location. But what's the process look like for, you open the new studio, you now need to bring on staff to handle, all the classes and things like that. What's that process look like from getting it like up and running?
Um, so as far as our staffing is concerned, I had the advantage of like one, I was able to fulfill in some of the classes. I don't do any of the classes anymore there, but initially I was able to leverage myself to do that. I always had a very specific thing where I wanted to be a place that was like close-ish enough to where opening a second facility. So you give trainers a unique advantage of being able to work then actually have a full-time position. So I would say one thing that is not always, I guess when we have trainers that will apply, or even people that are fresh out of school, which we don't take trainers like that, but trainers in the group training space, it's a rarity to get a full-time position. So one thing that this leveraged us to do is like we have a very busy studio in Tempe, but it was able to basically promote and put some of my top trainers into positions where
Mm,
they could actually work more full-time. And so that was a cool offer to be able to do. And so we just took our current staff that we knew could do both. And I have three, four. So I have four of the trainers that are bouncing now back and forth between both locations. And pretty much those four trainers handle all the classes in Phoenix and then contribute to a lot of the classes in Tempe. Um, One side note that I'll get to that is hiring. On the hiring side, you need to, and so this is what we do now is approach when you're looking for news trainers, um, approach that just like you do with leads in
mm,
your ads.
oh yeah.
So one thing that I would say 1.0 after it, or Nick would basically throw up a trainer ad when I needed it. And maybe I threw up a trainer ad, I don't know, total of like maybe I had 3 weeks out of a year or maybe 4 weeks out of one entire year. Now I have a trainer ad that I will throw in way more and I will filter through way more people to find
A
gems
players.
of potential trainers. Yes. And so, really, I started taking our sales process and leads process and filtering through for new trainers. You don't understand how high of a cost it is to bring on trainers that don't make it or that you just bring on and they're really B, C players.
They
And
ruin
you
your
know
brand.
that.
Yeah, they ruin your brand
You
too.
know that, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the amount of time you spend with them, only to you down the road to have to fire them or they
Mm,
quit, and you're like, why did I keep that person on in the first place? Um, that can waste so much time and so much money and so much of your brand. Whereas, to be completely honest, I am very quick to fire, and I've done that more and more over time. But when we get people in, we have a higher success rate where they start now and then they are actually an A player.
mm. You mentioned filtering with some of these processes. So what does that filtration look like so that you can kind of isolate those A players and remove all the B and C people? What's kind of that look like?
Yeah, so to keep it brief, pretty much just like we'll ask them certain questions. Like we'll be like, "Cool, have they responded within the first couple of days?" It's like we get
Mm,
their resume in. I'll just tell you a super side note, but like we use Indeed a lot. I've kind of tried other places, but if anybody applies to us, so there's like a native Indeed
mm,
resume. This is just our thing, and then there's one where you can upload your own PDF. Pretty much, if you have a native Indeed resume and you use that to build your resume out, I'm almost always rejecting you. So if you use their native template, which looks terrible, I'm pretty much rejecting your application no matter what. So that's one
interesting.
filtration system.
Interesting. Okay.
Um, and uh, and then another one is like response time. So like I'm responding to them. Do they get back to me within a day or two? If they let it go for a while, no, they're out. And so we have different things that we do for our admins and sales staff and then trainers. And so we'll do like a 15-minute call first and then talk to them on the phone, ask them a couple questions. We'll have a couple like, red flags if any of these things pop up. They may be unique to you. And so we'll have all of these things of filtration so we can basically get more leads in and weed out more people. And so anything that I learn, it's like, again, having my ads up for new trainers and looking for new trainers, the good trainers that I've had, and I think like over time, it's crazy to think that the good trainers that I have in my business right now, I really only had my ads open for 3 weeks out of a whole year. And I'm like, damn, I'm missing like what other trainers am I missing? Where if I just
Mm.
kept it open a lot longer, then I could just filter through. So now I keep our ads open, not all the time, but I would say like our goal this year is to have our ads open maybe, I would say 3 months out of the year. And so during this time though, I will see way more trainers. I can filter out more, and then I get a lot more people that are higher potential. And so I can usually find people better that way.
No, that's interesting. So you mentioned red flags. Do you have any examples of some things that would be like a big red flag? I know you mentioned the
Resume.
if they have the resume thing. What's the reasoning behind that anyways? So like what's the
Okay.
cycle? It's like they're lazy. It's like what's the thought
Yeah.
there? What's
Yeah.
it? Mm.
So I look at it from my end of it too. Like if you are pursuing a position, that website or that their native application is doesn't look good. You're trying to stand out. So if I'm trying to apply to a new job, I'm trying to do what I can to stand out in my own way. And I know if a person just does that, one, it's part laziness, and it's just like, cool, put in your experience here. It's just it's part laziness, and I know they're not making an effort to stand out. And so the ones that are inputting their resume in, they are making at least a little bit of effort to stand out. And so yeah, that's pretty much the reasoning why. Basic red flags are if they have like, I mean, for us, we require certain things of experience, stuff like that. Um, this is the dumbest thing that I see in the world, but if you are putting jobs that you've only been at for 3, 4 months at a time, which is so silly, but so many people do it, like not a good move, not a good look. So, I mean, there's a bunch of things like that within the resume that we'll see.
Mm.
And then when we take on those 15-minute calls, I'm trying to get the vibe of the person a little bit more, and then I'm asking little poignant questions that I kind of want to know the answer to. So, um, if any red flags pop up in there, like then we'll that will be another thing.
You'll handle it there. Yeah, no, that's interesting. When you're asking those questions and you're going through that process, what do you think is the most important thing to know about somebody before you bring them on? Like if there's one thing or a couple things, like what would be that the metric or the one most important thing to know about somebody, would you say?
I've asked certain things before, and sometimes I feel like you don't always get. I don't want to say you don't always get the truth, but they're trying to give you their best version of themselves.
Exactly.
So it's always tricky coming from the person. Not saying they're lying. I'm just saying that they can pick out the
Oh yeah.
most ideal detail, which so I've kind of gotten away from asking people. I've reformatted how I interview people over time a bunch. So I've kind of gotten away from asking them like, what are their ideal qualities as a human being,
Right. So
stuff like
standard.
that.
Yeah.
hmm Um, I want to know, have they been successful in the gym that they were at previously? And like, were they just a regular player, or were they successful and did they have a really, really good part or big part in that gym? And you will know that based off of what they tell you. So, were they an incremental part to that business? Were they really important? And then I guess not a lot of people do these days, but like I get references on everybody. And so I will call references for sure, especially if we're looking to bring that person on. But I would say one thing is like knowing if they were an A player at their previous job, because why would you ever bring on a B player into your business? Like, if anything, you should be looking at people that are just as good or better than what your current staff is.
Yeah, and I think this is an interesting topic because at least for us too at our company, it's like to be able to properly filter to find those A players is tricky because, like you said, it's like
Mhm.
you don't want to ask standard questions because they're at their best when they're in that interview, and so you need
Yeah.
to almost ask like these questions that are like subtle enough that they might not know what you're trying to go for in the question. And so I recently watched somebody who was basically talking about how he finds A players, and one of the things he says, one of his interview questions is, he basically says, "I don't like surprises, and so if there's anything that you could foresee happening that would cause a problem or cause an issue, what would that thing be so that I'm not surprised by it when it does inevitably happen?" And so the question is kind of like formatting it for them to basically tell you what the potential weakness is that could happen if you hired them on. And so
Yeah.
I just find it so fascinating because it's like as you grow to multiple studios, we already talked about how it's more, the gym industry it's more about marketing and sales, but it's also about like team building and leadership, especially as you start to develop
Culture.
more and more of these locations. And so figuring out that mechanism that you're clearly figuring out now for filtering through all the crap, finding the best A players, because the reality is a lot of owners that have class-based fitness studios aren't realizing how much of an impact their trainers and their team is having on their actual business as a whole. Like
Yeah.
it makes a massive difference.
Yeah, and there's a side note to this. Like, if you are looking to find a talent, just you have to be a talent yourself.
Oh
So,
yeah.
um, I know for certain other gym owners out there, and I'm not all of them and stuff, but like that gym owner is not a talent. So if they are looking to bring on a talent, if I'm an A talent player, why would I ever go to a gym owner that's a B or a C or just not anything? So,
Right.
super like you have to be a talent yourself because if you're not respected, and not like you need to be like hold respect, but just like you have to be able to have the skills to build your people up, not the other way around, which sounds basic, but I know a ton of gym owners over the past years which have a problem bringing in a talent. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, like, well, I mean,
Maybe
what
they're
are you
not.
really willing to do? And yeah, so
But I think, like, I think this is extremely important, that this discussion, because if people aren't aware of that, it's like it leads to issues in the business, and they're thinking, oh, all the people I bring on are, they're not A players, blah blah blah, but they're not looking at what the root of the problem is, which the reality is, it's like the leadership. You as the leader is, you're at the front of the business. Everything that you do, the standards that you set are applied across all of your employees,
yeah.
et cetera. And so, I guess what I wanted to ask you is, what do you think you need to do as a leader to become that? Like, what do you think somebody has to do to become that, like, that A player, that A leader, to be able to build, a team of A players? What do you think that, as an owner, you need?
First and foremost, most important, don't expect anybody to do things that you haven't done yourself and that you don't know how to do yourself. And it's going to require a lot of reps. So I mentioned earlier that we developed our system to be a group training and coaching facility. Well, when I created the whole coaching department of how we do things, um, I took on every single member that we signed up in the beginning. And I was working a lot already. And then I took on every single person for the first 4 months, maybe
Mm,
five, because I needed to understand, like, I knew all the tools. But then I'm like, okay, how am I going to systematize this? I can get a person and get them through all these things. How am I going to know what goes right, what goes wrong? So for about 4 to 5 months, took in every single person. And I mean, just to give you an idea, we were signing up, I think when I first started it, we were signing up minimum 30 people a month. And so
wow.
um,
Yeah.
I'm working with these people, and every single person that signs up, I'm meeting them 3 to 4 times throughout the month. And then I'm talking with them, communicating to them. So that can stack up a lot. So you have to, if you don't know sales, you have to understand sales and you have to learn sales so that not only you learn it and you can do it, but then you can eventually teach it to other people. So expect to be less and less shitty over time. And so I say that because ultimately I just go from the perspective is like, I'm just, and this is just me, I'm less shittier than I was yesterday.
Oh yeah.
And you're never going to be the greatest. There's always going to be things to learn, but not going through things myself or for another owner, there's no way you can train people how to do it. So when I first, so like me, what I'm doing now, I have that same mantra because over the past year, I'm now training my staff to do all of the coaching. So like I was training them before, but now my role is completely just all the coaching, all the training. I am training them how to work with our members 100%. And so really was not good at it at first, and I'm still not great, but I'm a lot better than I was a year ago.
Yeah.
And so that came from doing that over time. But I also had to know sales before I could start teaching them how to do it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. I think with, like, any of these big, players in entrepreneurship, like Elon Musk and stuff, you see these guys, and it's like Elon will go to the floor and, like, be in
Sleep
with
on
the
it.
factory work. Yeah, be in with the
Yeah.
factory workers. He knows what's going on in every level of the business, because, and the thing is, the other thing I think matters about this is when your employees and other people see you doing that, it changes the dynamic, because you're not just this CEO that sits at the top that looks down on everybody else. It's like, no, you're in the trenches with everybody else. And so you get another level of respect where they see this hard work of you just going in day after day, putting in all this effort, and they just want to,
Mhm.
come up to that
Yep.
standard, and you raise the bar for everybody else as well. I think that's a good point. I think the other thing too is awareness. I think is a big thing, is understanding where you might be sufficient and, have weaknesses, to be able to be honest about it and bring in people that can maybe supplement your weaknesses, to make everything better in the business as a
Yeah.
whole. Um,
You
I,
will, the serendipitous part of that is that you will also find people that have complementary or different sales skills than you have, which you
mm,
learn from. And even though you might be really, really good and knowledgeable about sales or whatever, you will bring people that show you a different way of doing it. And so, like, when it
mm,
comes to sales, like, we train our people to go off of the system first, and then eventually, as they start to know it, then they can basically not go
Adapt.
off script a ton, but use their own unique personality to do it, because everybody has a different way of selling in a sense.
Hmm.
One mistake is letting them do it their own way at first. I would say don't do that. Have them follow the system that you do. Prove to you that they can do it, and then you give them that. But don't give them the flexibility at first, because 9 times out of 10 it doesn't work out, and it will sometimes, but 9 times out of 10 it does not. And then what happens is you end up wasting 3 or 4 months on that person, hoping they're going to get better, better,
Mm.
better. And then it's just like, again, there'll be trainers, people that come with high confidence that can do it, but if they don't hit to what you need to, and you know this system works, train them on that first, and then they can add to it down the road in their own unique style.
Yeah, man, I think yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Follow the script, follow the process, and then as you kind of learn and develop as a salesperson, you'll be able to adapt and make changes. And because the other thing about sales that I think is interesting is it's like, yes, everybody does sales different, and every person that walks in the studio has different problems and issues and things going on. And so how to sell somebody who might be like an A-type personality is going to be completely different than somebody who's a little bit more, cautious and reserved and not so much as like a, an A player. And so it changes. Like it's very dynamic sales.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%.
So I wanted to pivot because we've talked a lot about, sales. We've talked a little bit about, opening your new studio, hiring people, becoming a leader. I want to talk a little bit about where I think a lot of studios are dropping the ball, which is on the follow-up side of things. And I think you guys do a really good job here because you pay attention. I think this is something that you do very well, is that you're tracking your data religiously. It's like you have an Excel sheet, you know everything that's going on. You send me your numbers every single month so that we can go through it. We can figure out, oh, hey, look at this stat here. Like our booking rates are down. Like, is this a quality problem? Is this a follow-up problem? And then we're changing and isolating variables to fix depending on what the issue seems to be. And so for you guys, I think you do an excellent job on the back end of things. And so the marketing, generating leads, getting them into the system is one thing, but really where the revenue and the money comes from when it comes from the marketing system in general is the follow-up. It's getting people in the door, which is a lot harder than most people think, especially if they're, just starting a gym. It's like, oh yeah, you just get leads and people will book. It's like, there's a whole process you have to go through. You have to nurture these people. You have to, make sure they feel comfortable so that they'll actually come to the studio. So walk us through a little bit about your follow-up process and how you take these leads that come into your system and how you nurture them to get them into your studio.
Yeah, so huge. Work your leads.
Yes.
Work your leads. These are gold mines, and also like they are future potential gold mines. So um, we take our leads through an initial like text campaign, right? So we're going to be introducing ourselves, stuff like that. Um, I know some of the people that you guys work with do it a little bit differently. We are a lot more on the manual side. Personally, just for us, that's what we've found to like. I would love it if I could have a bot or Chat GPT or Grok or
Me
whatever.
too. Me too.
Eventually, it's going to be like the new her or whatever, like
Yeah.
Scarlett Johansson, just giving me
Yeah.
just perfect messages.
Perfect messages all the time. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
But the truth is it's not there yet, and also you're going to have all these unique services come up. So we take a very manual approach for our leads. So we have an automatic text campaign that will introduce ourselves, and then we will take the text message off from there, and we're pretty much prospecting them throughout the day, every day. So I would say we're a little more manual on that end. And then what we like to do is we like to do a combination of text and calls. And so don't be afraid to call your leads.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, don't be a chicken. um,
Yeah.
Don't be scared. It's okay. People will get calls. I know sometimes people don't want to be that call person, but like, suck it up, do it. Sometimes the best thing you can learn also in those positions is to quickly frame the conversation to get them really excited and interested. And so, don't forget also they're a warm lead. So they asked to be communicated to. So, we do a combination of text and calls. And then we also, I would say, which is really huge, if they're not answering, we don't let those go. So on our back end, which we use Go High Level, love it since we were using a couple other things before. You kind of got us into Go High Level, which is great. And then we've created like reverts and stuff like that within our opportunities page to where we are constantly communicating with them if they have not come in yet, or if they have missed an appointment, canceled an appointment, whatever. But we prospect that thing every single day. And so being able to have systems in place or staff that can do that is huge. I've had and multiple people do it. I know that, and I don't know how all the gyms do it that you work with. I'm sure a variety of ways. But I think I saw this from gym launches. They kind of recommend to have like one prospecting person and hire. And I think that would work really great. I think that is a big responsibility for one person to just dial in all those all day. And so we have a staff where we have multiple admins that all know how to handle these things. And so we have a collection of maybe in one gym, three or four people that periodically throughout the day can go do this.
Yeah, and you have an interesting system too. Obviously leveraging high level because when it comes to marketing, when you get leads from Facebook, there's a lot of stale leads. They just sit there. They're the timing is not right for them. However, they still were interested. Like they filled out a form for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, something struck them, and they were like, oh, you know what? I should probably start working on my health and fitness goals. And so they did have that desire. And so what I think a lot of people lose the ball on is they forget to reactivate those leads. And so your reactivation system, I think, works extremely well. Like recently, we started working with one of your friends, Sean, who has Feeling Good Fitness, and he just launched your reactivation play, and it absolutely crushed it. Not only that, but yeah, he's taking the same format of offer that you're running on your ads, and he's running that too, and he's getting like $3 leads right now. Like he's absolutely crushing it. And so your reactivation process is you take all these stale leads, right, and you run them through, this basic. Well, right now, what's working really well is that 1 4-week offer that you came up with. That's really crushing it. So walk us through that reactivation process, because I know you've been running it every 30 days or so. Or what's kind of that time frame been like, and what's that process look like?
So yeah, we have a bunch of leads. So I think when we ran it in our past, we ran it last for like I think like a 6 or 8 weeks. We were probably signing up based off our leads alone that were reactivation leads. We were probably signing up between 5 to 7 people a week
Yeah.
just off that alone for like a good month there. And so we ran it for 6 weeks total. I would say we probably signed up, I don't even know, a lot, over 50 people from that in a 6 week period, over 50 in a 6 week period,
Crazy.
just from our past leads, not including new leads.
Mm.
That was huge. Um, our basic system with that is simple offer.
Very
They
simple.
are already used to you guys and have communicated with you guys. And then for whatever reason, they were just went stale or didn't communicate
Yeah,
or couldn't
exactly.
start at the time. So really, it's just having a unique offer that gets reaches out to them. And so once they come in, again, your offer matters a lot. So positioning your offer is really, really irresistible and high value is
Hmm.
important. And we pretty much will run that. We've got it down to running a reactivation now about three times a year, maybe four, but we will essentially go through our reactivation list 3 times a year. And now we'll spread it over a period of 2 3 months at a time. So which, if you think about it, like it's just all of those leads are you've talked about this a ton.
Hmm.
All of those leads that you get that do not join are such a big value still because they're all future signups.
Exactly.
And so reactivations are huge. You need to use your list. You absolutely need to do that. They have already been interested in you, and then chances are, if it doesn't work out, then down the road it will. So yeah, we run about three different plays throughout the year, and then we integrate it in with either our current challenge we're doing, or we have a unique offer that they will come in on, and they can get part of the coaching with that.
Yeah, and it's so simple too. It's like it's a text message that goes out with a unique, differentiating offer. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not rocket science. It's just taking these leads that are sitting there. And the other thing people forget is you paid for those leads for the most part. If you're just running Facebook ads and Instagram ads, it's like those leads you paid for at some point in time. And so while you're getting all those bookings from the reactivation, it's like that's practically free.
Yep.
Like of course you have to pay for the texting and stuff like that,
Yep.
but like you paid for these leads at some point in time. And so that now, if you run it for that 3 month period of time, it's like a constant drip on top of all the leads coming from your ads, on top of all the leads coming from your organic website leads. And it just kind of creates this system for, getting you up to those membership levels that you guys are now at. And so I think having all of these components running at the same time makes a massive difference.
Yeah, and then like going back, speaking to Sean, Sean I think put on the leads for like this is you guys had started working with him, but this is for you before you guys even started paid ads.
Mm,
And then he just ran this reactivation play, and his benefit is that he has so much goodwill in his community that he's at.
exactly.
So it's he's in Havasu, and
Mm,
a lot of people know about his gym that have gone to a gym because there's like I don't know how many gyms, but like gyms like his, I'm gonna say three. I'm just guessing,
okay.
maybe in town.
Mm,
Um, and so he has a lot of goodwill built in with the community. So his offer, when he set it up exactly as we kind of set up his, man, I want to say he signed up like within, I don't even know, within like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, he was probably signed up like 30 members. It was insane.
that's
I
what I
don't remember
mean.
what the numbers were, but it
And
was a lot.
that list had been sitting there stagnant. Like he hadn't been using
Yeah,
it. He hadn't been running offers. And so now it's
yeah,
like you said, he built all this goodwill. And so when he actually presented an offer, it's like that goodwill just went right into that offer. And now, like you said, he signed up. I think, yeah, you're right. It was around 30 or so in that 1 to 2 weeks. And he still has a number of people still on his list left.
yeah, yeah.
And so,
Yeah. Never with all the leads I would say that you have, and people even that don't sign up, um, never leave them cold or never leave them in a bad way because
yeah.
maybe they can't do it for whatever reason right now. And okay,
Hmm.
but you should know in your mind you're going to be talking with this person 3 months down the road, and they're going to remember if you were like didn't respond to them, or they're going to remember like they're going to remember. So just make sure even if they don't sign up at your gym and you come in, leave a good impression and be like, we'd love to work with you in the future. You'd be awesome here. Just create that good customer
Yep.
service, and then they will be way more likely to respond when you text them down the road.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to note that a lot of the clients that we run reactivation plays for, the ones that do really good with reactivations are ones that stay in touch. If you leave your list for too long and it gets stale and it gets cold, people don't know who the heck you are when you message them. And so the performance is going to be worse because most people are going to say stop because they think it's just somebody who's spam texting them. And so keeping them warm, staying up to date, sending them value, making sure you have omnipresence basically on email, Facebook, Instagram, Google, all these different platforms is going to help in the long run. And it's basically having all these things going at the same time, which I think makes the biggest difference. Helped you get, up to the 60,000 a month consistently at Tempe, North Phoenix. We're working on getting it up there. And yeah, I think that's the big help that studios need to implement.
Yeah. Before, when I was training a lot of, I would say, a gym that I'd start off in, and like even a little bit after that, I was kind of coaching personal trainers a little bit more on like things to increase their member retention and then new client sign on. And so, this is still a thing, like newsletters are a thing. You could still do it to this day, even at Go High Level. But what I would tell those trainers is all the time is, even if they don't sign up and you have a list, you need to be having content that you push out to them, because at the end of the day, at some point, if they contemplated getting into with you, if they didn't right then, clearly this person is going to be interested in fitness at some point in down the road. They're going to think about it again. And if they think about it again, you want to be that first person top of mind. And if you are emailing them and sending out good value, they're going to be top, or you're going to be top of mind when they do think about it again. And then if you have an offer, Gary Vee had this like jab, 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 right hook.
Oh yeah, good book.
And then I think Hormozi talked about, you can just like keep on doing like jab, jab, jabs, and just keep on getting content. And then eventually they will come and they will ask.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned content, and I think something that you guys also do really well, which is why your ads and all these systems work well, is because you guys put out so much organic content on your social media that not only does it help with your advertising campaigns, but that is also doing exactly what you just said. It's like you're providing value, you're showcasing your studio, you're doing all these things, and it's building awareness. Like I think people forget how much of an impact organic content can have, not only for, the fact that people will see it and you'll get some organic reach, but also because it gives you good reputation with the social media platforms, like on Instagram, on Facebook. The more content you put out, the more they see you as a reputable business, the more they'll push your content out, the more it'll help with your ads. And it kind of just creates this effect for producing better results for you guys with your content. You guys are posting, how many times are you guys posting on your social media every single week? It's
definitely. So there's weeks where it's a lot, and there's weeks where it's, every week. I think the sweet spot, what I've kind of found out, and my friends will even more than this, the sweet spot for posting like reels for us right now is about 3 to 4 times a week per gym. That keeps us engaged. There is an extent where you don't, I could be wrong about this, but like for us, we could post more. But as far as like what I think does for the algorithm really good for us is minimum 3 times a week. And then your people are seeing it, people that follow you, stuff like that. It could be more, but more will not hurt. But we usually try and get about 3 to 4 times a week on average. And then we'll post out various content between class content, which is probably the main part of our content, but we'll do like forum videos, upcoming movement videos, stuff like that. So people that are in your followers that are not members will see not only do you guys post stuff, but that you guys are engaging with your people and that you really care about the service. Exactly. So we'll do like results videos for members. This is a community place. So your people come to your place a lot because they want results, and then community, a lot of these people want as well. So you want to show them that from the front, like put smiling faces in your videos, make sure you have the trainers. One thing I always recommend trainers to do is we like to show our trainers in clips and within clips what they look like, what they sound like. So like we got mics, because one hesitation with a lot of people is they're like, well, I want to go to this gym. Some people could look at our gym, and if they didn't see certain things, they'd be like, that kind of looks like a scary gym, or that kind of looks like a lot of heavy, intense lifting, right? But then once they see us talk and they're familiarized with us person to person, over social media, they feel like they know us already, and they get us, and they understand the kind of human beings we are. And so hopefully you're not a trash human being. Hopefully you don't. But that goes a long way. So if you show not only your guys' class stuff, what's going on, but show who you guys are as people. Because a lot of people, they still have hesitation of like, I want to go to this gym, but I don't know these people. Are they nice? Right. Are they friendly? Are they welcoming? All that kind of stuff.
No, I think that's a great point. The familiarity of showcasing your like as soon as somebody walks in, if they saw videos of you and you talking, they're like, hey, I know this guy. I somehow feel like I know him, even though the only thing they've seen is content on your pages. And I think the saying is like, it takes about 7 different touch points for a brand to get to that point where people will then be willing to purchase. And so it's like 7 touch points. And so the more you can make on those in terms of the organic content or whatever else you're putting out there, the more likely you're going to get people to be familiar with you. And it's just like planting that seed. Nick, this has been an awesome conversation. I appreciate you hopping on here. I think, anybody who listens to this is going to get a ton of value from your growth, your success. I think they're going to learn a ton from this. So I appreciate you hopping on here and doing this with us.
Thanks for having me. And appreciate it.
If you found this interview with Nick helpful and you want to see more content like this, leave this video a like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next video.